Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I am back with a scrapbooking process video for you guys. I have a couple of photos here from our recent trip to Idaho to go see my mom. So I have a couple of pictures of my boys. We went out to one of the state parks and they had this really fun lake that they got to go out onto. So I had a couple of photos that I wanted to document. I have tons and tons more that I need to document, but I'm slowly diving in, and I wanted to jump on and start doing my summer photos because they are going to go perfectly with the Elizabeth kit from Felicity Jane. So I will link that unboxing down below so you can see everything that comes in the kit and some of the other new releases and all that goodness. But it's all very summer themed, and I love that the colors are a little bit muted, which summer collections usually are very vibrant, very bright, and I kind of like a more soft color palette, and so this works perfect for that. So I edited my photos to be a little bit more muted and soft to kind of go along with the softness of the colors of the kit. And so off camera I went ahead and kind of set up a few things ahead of time just for the sake of the video and saving time. So I took one of the patterned papers from the Elizabeth collection and cut it down to 8.5 by 11, which is the size that I am scrapbooking right now. And then I gutted the inside of it. That way I'm not wasting all of that paper, because this is just going to be an accent piece behind this white cardstock piece. This is the cardstock from Felicity Jane. I'll have everything linked down below for you guys. So my finished project will be 8.5 by 11. And it's about a 1/2 inch border that I've given myself with that patterned paper. I pulled out some chipboard pieces and some die cuts that I want to use from the kit. And then I also cut some strips from this pattern paper. Is plaid and scallop. This is from the Elizabeth collection as well, and it has this fun kind of scallopy wave pattern. So I went ahead and cut out some strips that I'm going to kind of layer up on the bottom of my layout down here. I've also pulled out some of the layered stickers, some of the chipboard alphabets, the stamp set. I have a couple other papers from the collection that I'm going to use to layer behind my photos, and then we're just going to kind of see how things come together. So let me go ahead and put you on fast forward and we'll put this layout together. Alright, so I'm going to start by assembling the main piece of this layout, I guess. I like to use either a glue stick or liquid glue when adhering things like this down. That way I have a little bit of time to wiggle things around and adjust it if I need be. If I'm just sticking a die cut down and I know where it's going to go and I don't want to move it, then I will use adhesive tape runner. But for something like this, a glue stick makes it so you can make sure that everything is even and straight, and you have some flexible room there. So I'm going to start matting my photos. Now, this first paper that I'm using here is actually from the Sarah collection. I will have everything linked down below. And there is a like scripty word paper in the Elizabeth collection, but this one, the font is smaller, and so you can actually read some of the phrases around the photo since it's a smaller font. That's why I chose this one. But there is a really pretty like scripty font pattern paper in the Elizabeth collection as well. So I'm just going to use that to back these photos, trim everything down, and then I'm also going to use that yellow gingham that is from the Elizabeth collection. And this is just bringing little pops of color behind these photos. The way that these photos were edited, there's very little color in there, and the color overall in this layout is very muted. So I wanted to be very intentional about where I added pops of color, so that it wasn't just too, bland and washed out looking. So I'm just going to add those down there and just use my trimmer to trim them out. I've recently gotten that smaller guillotine trimmer, and I love kind of bouncing back and forth between the two depending on the size of paper that I'm using. I get much cleaner cuts with the guillotine style trimmer, so I think I might be investing in a like large size guillotine trimmer soon. We'll see. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts about trimmers down below. What's your favorite? Do you have a preference? Let me know in the comments. So I'm going to put these photos down, and I am going to turn them just slightly. I do a mixture of things on this layout. Some of the elements are straight and even, and other things are a little bit wonky. Don't ask me why I do that. That's just the way that I create. That's what works for my brain, and that's how I like to do it. I think that if everything is evenly spaced and linear, it's beautiful. I think if things are wonky, it's beautiful. It just kind of depends on what, what your style is. Now, something that's really becoming like a Lindsey signature element is putting my journaling on a tag in a pocket on my layout. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm using some double-sided adhesive, adding it to just 3 sides of that photo. I have not stuck it down quite yet because I want to see what size tag I'm going to use. So I have this nested tag die set, one of my favorites. I use it all the time. And I'm just tracing that die onto a plain piece of printer paper. I run that through my typewriter, type out my journaling, and then die cut that out. And then I also die cut a piece of pattern paper. Now, I initially had one of the Elizabeth polka dot patterns laid out, but I went through my stash and found this 6x6 paper from Felicity Jane that had a smaller polka dot pattern that worked a little bit better for this smaller tag. So I went ahead and just cut a piece of that out, cut out the journaling, and then glued those together. So now I have my journaling tag. And I just found that this is a fun way to add the journaling to the layout without having it take away from, the look of the layout. I don't have to worry about, typing on the layout ahead of time or using my own handwriting. It just works a little bit better for me. So after I put that together, I did add another piece of adhesive just so that the tag didn't fall too deeply into the pocket, if that makes sense. So this is just 1/8 inch score tape. I love using this tape for pockets and things because it's a very strong adhesive and I don't have to worry about things falling apart over time, as that is an interactive element. And then this other photo is just going to get adhered directly down to the page. It's not going to be a pocket. And then now I can start working on the bottom portion of this. And I kind of fussed with it. At first I kind of thought maybe I should have them wonky and crooked, and then I decided to go in and make them all evenly spaced and straight. A lot of this kind of playtime ends up off camera sometimes because I test things out, try different things out, and then edit out all the trying out. And if I didn't do that, these videos would be like 3 hours long. So just know that I don't just stick things down and know exactly where it's going to go and have it all perfect the first go round. There is some trial and error to this, but here you can see I am just using a T-ruler, and there's like a lined pattern on that mint pattern paper, and that's also helping me line up these strips of paper. And again, these were just cut from one of the patterns from the Elizabeth collection, and I just used my trimmer to trim out these thin scallops, and this is going to create a wave pattern. Now off camera, I did go ahead and run this through my sewing machine. My sewing machine has a whole bunch of decorative stitches. So there's this one that looks kind of like a wave. I did adjust the stitch that it was a little bit longer and more spaced out, especially when I'm sewing on paper. I want to make sure that my stitches are spaced quite away from each other. That way the paper doesn't tear. And then this here is another trick that I do on the back side of anything that I stitch paper wise, any elements, anything that goes, that's paper stitched. I add washi tape to the back, and this just secures everything and makes sure that over time the stitches don't pull through the paper. Stitching on paper can be a little bit delicate, so taking those steps just make sure that over time this layout is going to hold up. So now you can see I have this really fun kind of wave pattern at the bottom. I was kind of going for a beach theme. Now we are at a lake, not the beach, but there was sand, there was water. We were wearing flip-flops, so we're going to go with it. So I pulled out a bunch of these chipboard pieces. I initially wanted to kind of tuck these behind those strips of paper, but it just wasn't going to work with the stitching and all of that. So I decided to just stick them on top. I did trim this umbrella down just so that it wouldn't interfere with where I'm going to put the title, but I don't know that that was totally necessary, but it all comes together in the end there. So I'm going to start working on the title. Now I did pull out this piece of 6x6 pattern paper, and I'm going to heat emboss on this. Now I did this instead of black cardstock because the black stripes in this pattern paper are from Felicity Jane. So all of my blacks on my layout are going to be very similar. And I know you think black is black. what does it matter, Lindsey? But it's not. These blacks with Felicity Jane are a slightly like worn, muted, I don't know, they're just a little bit different. So by using this, it makes sure that everything is cohesive on the layout. So I stamped that word summer in clear sticky ink, added some white embossing powder, and then I'll go ahead and heat set this. Now, when you are embossing white on black, you want to make sure that you use a powder tool of some sort to prep the surface, because you don't want stray flecks of white embossing powder. They're really going to be obvious on that black background. And then I'll just go ahead and trim this down. I know some of you are probably thinking, Lindsey, this is a waste of paper, but it's been in my collection for months. I haven't used it. I can use it for similar techniques. There's still some paper on here that I can use, so I'm okay with using it for something like this. And again, this is from Felicity Jane, so everything will be linked down below if you want to find this down there as well. I checked to make sure that it was still in stock before linking it. So I trim that down, and then I'm going to add a little fishtail detail to each side. I just take small scissors, make a snip down the center, and then come in from the corners towards that snip. And that's how I get those even fishtails on the end there. And then I pull out the chipboard alpha from the Elizabeth collection, and I really kind of fussed with the placement of these, so I edited out a lot of that. And I also added that little lemon die cut piece behind there. And with all those die cuts over there, it kind of just helps bring attention to where the title is. The word Idaho could very easily kind of get lost in the stitching and all the stuff that's happening at the bottom of the layout down there. So that's why I added some additional die cuts over there. Just gluing down a few more of those chipboard pieces. I do use a strong liquid adhesive for that, just to make sure that they're adhered well. And then at the top, I wanted to leave it fairly simple. I don't want it to be too busy, so I'm just finding out where the center of my layout is and then adding one of these layered stickers towards the top there. I added a little bit of fabric detail to the journaling tag, and that is going to be it for the layout today. I love how this came out. This collection is gorgeous. I cannot wait to document more of these photos with this collection. Be sure to check out the description box down below for links to everything that I used today, as well as the blog post with more close-up photos. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below for me. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.